Hello everyone, it's Chrissy and I'm back after a little bit of a hiatus again. I know I kind of took two in a row, which kind of sucks, but it was holidays, so I was kind of giving myself a little bit of time, and I'm actually back this time, and we're the same shirt as last video because why not? Everybody loves an open shoulder in winter, right? But I come bearing great news for those of you who don't know or are unaware. Recently, House just passed a bill that basically bans transgender women, such as moi, from participating in girls' sports in schools in specific. So, I think that certain competition levels it's still legal, but in schools and educational fields, anything that would really grant a scholarship like that, it's actually banned now. I figured that this would actually probably take effect sometime after Trump got, actually inaugurated, because I think currently we are 3 days away from Trump's inauguration, which is kind of crazy to think about. It really feels like just yesterday that he won the election in the first place, but oh well, here we are 3 days until the inauguration, and transgender women are banned from sports. With anything, regarding trans people nowadays, there's going to be a lot of complete misunderstandings. There's going to be a lot of misinformation that gets spread around, and it's already happening, of course, and of course it's on Twitter, everyone's favorite platform nowadays. And I kind of want to come on here, give my take on it and actually correct some misinformation, because contrary to belief, there is actually a very genuine, valid reason behind banning transgender women, or I guess in this case trans teens, if you can call them that, from competing in even girls' athletic sports. And the reasonings are pretty simple, but unlike most people where they kind of just say biology, I actually kind of want him to go in and say what biological facts actually affect the competition of transgender women, and how even on hormones that doesn't change anything. You still have a biological advantage. So one really big difference between the two is actually something that I don't see a lot of people talk about, and that's fast and slow twitch muscle fibers. Now, men generally have more fast twitch muscle fibers. What these are good for is things that are really quick paced, weightlifting, sprinting, something that's good in intervals. It's good for, as my research has called it, explosive energy in a sense. Like when a dude is sitting there lifting like 500 pounds, he gets that explosive energy. That's thanks to the fast twitch muscles in his body. Now, women tend to have more slow twitch muscles. What those are better for is things endurance. So maybe something like running in a long term, like let's say like a 5K or like a very long marathon or something. If you take a sprint, like let's say a 1 mile sprint, a man is probably going to clear that. However, if you take like a 10-mile sprint, and you put them up against each other, it's probable that the woman's gonna actually achieve that, because more slow twitch muscle fibers actually increases women's endurance. Now, the thing about estrogen is it doesn't actually affect your twitch muscle fibers in any capacity. Estrogen actually completely unaffects them, because twitch muscle fibers are just kind of something you're born with. Whether you're going to be born with fast twitch ones or slow twitch ones, it's just kind of determined by genetics, and you can't really alter that even if you're on estrogen. So that alone gives men an advantage in, like I said, fast-paced sports, football, even track, because not all track is marathons, soccer, anything that requires an explosive amount of force and energy. Another huge difference, and huge in literal terms, is height. Men are generally born much taller and much bigger, just in general, than women are. And that's a statistical fact. It's an easily observable fact. It's a fact that we all know. And unfortunately, estrogen doesn't change any of those things. Estrogen doesn't change your height. Estrogen doesn't change your limb length. Estrogen doesn't really change a lot about your natural physique besides your fat distribution, which does play a part in athletics, don't get me wrong, except it just doesn't play as much of a part as everything else. And having a more feminine fat distribution doesn't change the fact that you're 6 foot tall. It doesn't change that you have more fast twitch muscle fibers in your body. And we're going to keep going down the list because we have plenty more. And we're going to tell you exactly how they give you those advantages. And again, another one that everybody knows is men are born with larger hearts, larger lungs relative to their body size, of course. And guess what? That's going to increase your endurance. It's going to increase your athleticism. It's going to increase your strength. It's going to increase your capacity. It's going to increase everything that you have, your stamina. I could really go on the list. I mean, men are naturally just born to be more athletic in a lot of these fields than women are. And when you compare just the natural woman to natural trans woman, even let's go 5 years on estrogen, there's going to be a pretty big biological difference between the two, that there's just going to be a lot of immutable things. You can't really deny that. You can't really mute that. You can't really take that away. That's why this law was put into place. I'm sure you can gather from everything else I said here today that my take on this is trans women really shouldn't be competing in women's sports leagues. Personally, I don't think that there's a reason for them to be competing in women's sports leagues in the first place. I mean, at the end of the day, you kind of have to come to terms with a lot of things when you're trans. And I feel like one of those is you're gonna have to come to terms with the fact that you were born male. And so you're gonna have more male characteristics in certain regards. That's going to give you an unfair competitive advantage when you're put up against the average cis female athlete. It's undeniable. And when it comes to trans women and women's sports, I really feel like it's purely for a validation thing. Really. I mean, there's nothing else you gain from that. You don't really gain a sense of satisfaction because you're not winning in a fair competition. And the validation, I'm sorry, this is just one of those cases where your validation really does not come before everybody else, right? And I know that line kind of gets repeated a lot. I know that line gets thrown out. I know that's just a typical thing people say, but it's just true. That's why people say it, is there's a certain line you cannot cross when it comes to validation. And when it comes to stepping on other people, when it comes to taking away opportunities from other people, you can't go on that line. You can't cross that. And as a trans woman, I don't understand why you want to cross that line just so that way you can feel more validated as, you know, as being trans, as, you know, if you think you're a natural woman, whatever. I don't see how that validation comes from it. The fact that you're on a female sports team. Sometimes you just have things in life that limit you. It's not fair. There's a lot of things that aren't fair in this life. There's a lot of things that aren't fair in the world. And unfortunately, if you're going to transition, you can't go into a women's sports league. I have tachycardia, I have a heart condition. There's a lot of things I can't do because if I do, I'm at risk of getting a heart attack and dying. But, oh well, that's just the way the cookie crumbles, unfortunately, you know? And that's kind of the way the cookie crumbles when it comes to being trans. There's things you can do, there's things you can't do. Accept it and be happy for what you have. At least be happy that you have a body to be able to walk around, to be able to do anything, to even be considering athletics, and try to make a career for yourself in maybe another field. I mean, we can, at this point, we have so many trans athletes coming out of the woodwork. We could probably have a league. People say that all the time as a joke. I genuinely believe it. I think at this point we have like 20, like in each sport, most likely. We can throw a league together, throw a couple of them. Why not, you know? I think that's all for this video. Honestly, I was kind of considering being a little bit more mean-spirited with it and bringing up some specific examples and like really in depth and all that, but I kind of decided against it the last second. I kind of want to go for more the actual scientific facts, because if I'm just going to sit here and be mean, no one's actually going to listen. And people want to hear actual reasonings. I want to say this to other people who are arguing on this, is please just use the science. Don't try to be insulting with it. I mean, you can do it a little bit. It's pretty fun to do it a little bit, I'm not gonna lie. But just try to do it subtly and bring up more evidence for it. Because honestly, some of the things I mentioned here, I've never heard from other people mention them. I mean, just the fact, and I know I keep bringing it up, but it's just like, I didn't even know this until I did my own research. And, you know, I've watched plenty of people cover this, but talking about things like muscle mass, muscle distribution, and like I said earlier, the twitch fibers, people don't really discuss those things. And I feel like when you actually bring them on the table and bring up these immutable biological facts that hormones cannot change, then it kind of gets harder and harder to deny them. You know what I mean? Anyway, guys, that's all for today, and thank you for sticking by me, and hopefully my content schedule will smoothen out soon. Love you all.